Pinky with the glass
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Do you all want to come up now? Hi, if you can take a seat or get comfortable. I'll hand you back your mic. Okay. I took your mic right now. I think I shut those doors. There you go. Thank you. Well, can you guys see me? Sorry, I can't see you. Well, good evening, and thank you for coming. We're very, very excited you're all here, and thank you for your time. And it's kind of nice to see people in person. It's weird to hug and say hello, so thank you. Anyways, my name's Kate Smith, and I'm the president of St. Francis Foundation, and my pronouns are she and her. What I would like to say first and foremost, a little business, is that the LGBTQ plus societies in Battery was very nice to help get this started and host this with us. Chris Meza, who is a former board member of St. Francis Foundation, has now turned off. Unfortunately, he was going to do a quick little welcome for me, but he is home not feeling well. But he actually said, please send candy and flowers accordingly if you know him, just for a little fun. Anyways, we're very excited for you to hear from this incredible panel of leaders that support St. Francis Hospital's gender diverse clients during each step of their journey. And we have some great surgeons. We have Maitri, we have Lion Martin, we have San Francisco Community Health Center, which are just great people, as well as Lynn Frazier, who's an incredible psychotherapist, as well as our great doctors, Ellie Zarley and Heidi Wittenberg. For more than 43 years, the mission of St. Francis Foundation has been to raise funds and give grants for the critical public health initiatives. We support and enhance the ability of St. Francis Moral Hospital and other community partners to deliver exceptional healthcare and compassionate care in our city. In the last 20 years, St. Francis Foundation has granted more than $60 million to support the hospital, its staff, its patients, and the San Francisco community at large. We focus on 4 primary public health initiatives: aging, technology and innovation, behavioral mental health, and also crisis response. Our work supporting the St. Francis Hospital Gender Institute is a direct result of our efforts in each of these areas. Tonight's discussion will center around how the Gender Institute and various community leaders are working together in partnership, wrapping around and supporting each patient holistically to meet their needs during their transition. And we're grateful. I now would like to introduce our first speaker, Kim Brown-Sims. She is the Chief Nursing Officer for both St. Francis Moral Hospital and St. Mary's Medical Center. She's also the founder, and CEO of KBS Leadership Consulting. And she's leading the charge in a broad range of critical strategic initiatives for the Gender Institute. Kim, come on up.
Well, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here tonight supporting this incredible work that's being done. I happened to kind of stumble into this assignment working as a chief nurse exec for these 2 hospitals. And when I came, the CEO said to me, "You're going to stay." And I said, "Maybe not, but maybe." And it took me no more than 3 months to say, "I'm going to stay." And a big part of it was because I got thrown into this incredible, incredible work. And Heidi came and knocked on our door and she said, "You need to get to work. We have work to do here." And, just calling attention to the needs of the trans and gender diverse community. I have a passion around gender equity, and this work takes that passion and expands it 100-fold. I have been very privileged to step into this role, working with some of the most incredible people who have paved the path for this care that's being provided to this community. And now it's time for us to really expand on that and make sure that everyone is aware that the incredible care that's been being done here since 1966 puts us at the forefront as the only center in the world that is SRC certified as a center of excellence, and you'll hear a lot more about that. We started the charge way back then, and we want to lead the charge and be that global presence for care and advocacy for this patient population. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the amazing Heidi Wittenberg.
So welcome, everybody. I am going to have us all do some gymnastics for a moment and have you three stand over to the side after I got you all settled up here. You two come on down. We're about to start a little video right behind. And part of this video is, just so you know, part of the good work that the foundation has done in the video is a very cool looking tool in the background called the robot. That the foundation donated to the Hospital for the Gender Institute. And we can now roll the video.
For me, gender has been a journey, and that journey began in childhood at a time when gender existed only as a binary description. So growing up, I didn't understand why something felt wrong. Eventually, in adulthood, that language existed, and I came to understand why I've always felt that I'm a woman, because I am. I eventually learned that that was called transgender. I eventually had the courage to say that out loud to myself, to my community, and eventually to begin a journey of changing my body to match my gender identity. In that journey, I interviewed a variety of surgeons who would be capable of helping me accomplish what I wanted to achieve. That's when I met Dr. Heidi Wittenberg.
It's really difficult for my patients to share their stories. They've gone through a long journey. They've had many hoops and steps to go through to even get to see a surgeon. I'm one of the endpoints, even though I'm a small blip on their radar. It is a year recovery for my surgeries. And this surgery has all their hopes of their future health and happiness piled into it with triggers and traumas from their past experiences. Even patients who are out long term still have difficulty talking about their journeys and their stories.
Being transgender is not something that is very welcome. Being transgender has been demonized. We've been hunted, literally. We've been ostracized. Our rights have been denied. So sharing a story about something so deeply intimate and so deeply personal is scary.
This is a underserved, underprivileged subset of patients that needed advocating for, and St. Francis has become a hub of specialists, and we want to create a center of excellence for this care and welcome these patients where they have been turned away and not given access to medical care elsewhere.
We need these centers. We need St. Francis Gender Institute because caring for people who are on a journey with their own gender is an incredibly intimate, complicated, personal experience. For an entire medical team to truly appreciate the complexities of gender and understand how profoundly important every single interaction is in the health and care of people on journeys with their gender.
I'm here to help you and make you happy. And once you know what makes you happy, then I can help you with that. And the gender confirmation surgeries are just to help you match and align yourself to what your true identity is and what you should have been born with. So once you know what that is, that's where I come in to help.
Gender is an incredibly complicated topic. It is identity, and expression, and culture, and socialization. And if your gender identity and your body don't match, there's opportunities to fix that. So often people ask, why did you do it? I invite you to hold your breath Keep holding it. Keep holding it. Eventually, you take a breath. And to you, I ask, why did you breathe? I had no choice. I had to do this. I had to live authentically.
Okay, so we have two moderators. I'm a moderator, and I have to introduce my lovely co-moderator here. Dr. Lynn Fraser is a psychotherapist in private practice in San Francisco. And as a clinician, she has worked with transgender clients for the past 40 years, primarily doing long-term therapy. In terms of public service, she's been active with the World Professional Association for Transgender Health since its inception in 1979. She's been lead author in mental health and telehealth for international guidelines in transgender health and the standards of care for WPATH. Dr. Fraser is also the past president of WPATH and has been co-founder and past co-lead of the Education Institute, which has trained approximately 5,000 interdisciplinary clinicians in 58 countries. Dr. Fraser has a special interest in increasing global access to competent and compassionate trans health care. She's written extensively on trans mental health and interdisciplinary care and served as an expert witness for the Obama White House. In 2018, she received the Lifetime Distinguished Service Award from WPATH for her lifetime of service. Her CV is like 25 pages long. So I'm trying to get through this really fast. Her first transgender client had lower surgery with a St. Francis surgeon, Dr. Ed Falsys, in the mid-70s, who did a lot of pro bono work. And working with Dr. Falsys was her first experience with interdisciplinary care in the field. She was then recruited at the beginning of the Gender Institute at St. Francis over 6 years ago and continues to serve as a consultant and co-lead for the Advisory Council and helping me and Kim Brown-Sims with our vision of expanding the interdisciplinary care, which is also why everyone else is here, which we'll get to. Yep.
Thank you, Heidi. I love working with you. I am the other moderator here, and it's my first job is to introduce Heidi, who in some ways needs no introduction. She's been called, and it's so true, the amazing Heidi Wittenberg, Dr. Heidi Wittenberg. So Heidi Wittenberg was raised in the Bay Area and did her medical training and residency back east before returning to the Bay Area in 1999. Here she's continued to participate in urogynecologic advances and develop female pelvic medicine centers locally. This is before gender affirmation, working in gender affirmation surgery. Since her return, and this is really important, she's always been on the leading edge of her field, whatever that field is. In the vanguard, and this again is so important in trans health, in minimally invasive gynecology and robotic procedures. I think you may have seen the robot in the movie. In 2013, she became one of the first board certified specialists in female pelvic medicine and in reconstructive surgery. She became certified as a master surgeon. And of Excellence in Minimally Invasive Gynecology and Robotics by the Surgical Review Corporation. That's just the beginning. She continued on that path of pioneering surgery, leadership, and safety after being recruited to work in the field of trans-affirming surgery. In 2018, she became director of Mosaic Care, a practice solely focused on gender-affirming surgery. St. Francis named her medical director of the Gender Institute in 2020, only 2 years ago. She's been the director and chief of surgery in 2021. Once again, the Surgical Review Corporation certified her a Master Surgeon of Excellence, this time in gender affirmation surgery, attesting to her skills and safety record. Aside from these attributes, Dr. Wittenberg has worked on surgical missions in Guatemala and in San Francisco, volunteering for the underserved, and continues to do so, receiving the Congressional Operations Unsung Hero Award in 2011 and another one in 2018 for giving back to the community. Today's event is a continued attestation of her continued capacity to have a dream and implement it. Her vision has been to build the Gender Institute at St. Francis, and under her leadership to build wraparound services. And here are our people for wraparound services for her dream. I'm honored to be a part as we all help Heidi build her dream.
It takes a village, and San Francisco is our first village. And we're going to make all of our service, and we're going to be the first diamond in cutting edge to have the leading interdisciplinary care, I think, in the world here. So I would like to start with our first panelist, Dr. Ellie Zaralay, who is an extremely accomplished, well-recognized plastic surgeon specializing in gender affirmation surgery. She is proud to serve her community by offering fully comprehensive gender surgical services through Gender Confirmation Center in San Francisco. After general surgery residency, she pursued just 3 other subspecialty degrees. I mean, and nothing, hard, craniofacial, pediatric plastics, hand surgery, microsurgery.
They're calling her.
She's
She
on
can't
call.
get away.
They're like, and she's supposed to be in the OR right now. Another plastic surgery fellowship. And then after that, she was recruited by internationally renowned gender surgeon, Dr. Toby Meltzer, who felt her vast experience and skill set would make her an ideal surgeon to take under his wing and teach her the art of gender surgery. These were her defining and formative years as a gender surgeon, and discovering that serving her community in this privileged and blessed position would become ever fulfilling and deeply satisfying. Dr. Lay is passionate and devoted to helping this community, and especially gender diverse youth, to reach their goal of aligning their bodies with their genuine sense of self and identity. She also hopes to serve as a positive role model to not only those in the LGBTQ+ community as a transgender professional, but also by representing gender, ethnic, and immigrant inclusivity and diversity in the medical field. Dr. Ellie Zaralay.
Amazing, right? I'm sitting between 2 amazing gender surgeons. Our next guest is Michael Armentrout, pronouns he, him, who is Executive Director and Mission Manager of My Tree Compassionate Care. He's recently assumed this role. And since 1987, and he'll be telling us more about it, but My Tree has provided hospice, palliative, and respite care to low-income people disabled by HIV and AIDS. But in 2021, we were so fortunate that Maitri is now going to be part of helping and working with people in transition, trans care, coming out of St. Francis and possibly elsewhere post-surgery. Oftentimes, my people, for example, they don't have a place to go after surgery for care. And Maitri is such a place. Now, our mission is no one should have to suffer, transition, or die alone. Prior to Michael's tenure at Maitri, Michael was a research finance analyst for the University of California, San Francisco, and I'm not quite sure how that worked. Because he had many years as a policy analyst in financial advisory. But he was president of the Nicholas Sparks Foundation and deputy director of AIDS Breast Cancer Emergency Funds. 23 years of experience in financial services. And he performed auditing and accounting for 6 years with Price Waterhouse at the Research Triangle Institute. And that's in North Carolina, for those who don't know. But what he has done over the years, he's been very, very active politically in HIV and AIDS, lobbying city officials, state legislatures, and the U.S. Congress on the Bryan White Care Act and Employment Non-Discrimination Act and direct HIV/AIDS services. He also earned a BA degree in management science accounting from Duke University, my alma mater, by the way, in 1978, after me. And he was the recipient, the only one in the entire university, by the way, of the W.N. Reynolds Scholarship.
J.M. Jaffe, pronouns they, them, is a non-binary transmasculine trans health content expert. They have 12 years of experience in community health operations at Lyon Martin, 7 years in consulting at Transline, a national provider clinical support tool, and has their technical assistance firm, Trans Health Consulting. They also have over a decade of experience in policy advocacy, most recently affiliated with the National LGBTQIA+ Primary Care Alliance and the Trans Advisory Committee for San Francisco's Office of Trans Initiatives. In March of 2022, JM stepped into a new role as if they didn't have enough on their plate. And again, the CV was long, so this is all condensed. But new role as executive director of the newly independent Lyon Martin Community Health Center, which I'm excited for them to talk about tonight. And they also serve as board secretary for St. James Infirmary and board lead for Our Trans Home SF. I mean, a real slacker, right? Right.
I also want to comment on JM because I knew JM, well, I've known JM in other ways, but not too long ago as a consultant at St. Francis. And it was just amazing. I mean, what Heidi just said was nothing compared to all the different things on JM's list of many, many things you've done. So I'm so glad you're back. And now, and last but not least, Nikki Kalman, who many of you probably know, very well known in the Bay Area for the past 25 years working in the field. Her grassroots activism and community advocacy started in the early 90s. And she's become a tireless and proud transgender community leader in the Asian and Pacific Islander community, and also in the greater LGBTQI of the Bay Area. She spearheaded many initiatives and programs to prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS. and that's changed and improved many lives. But currently, she's director of programs and community engagement at San Francisco Community Health Center. And you can see how that would work in terms of wraparound services for us. Under her wing are some of San Francisco's most important programs that serves marginalized communities in San Francisco. One of them, which I've heard about for a long time, is the Trans Thrive program. A drop-in center, and this is so important, that is dedicated to helping the transgender community succeed in San Francisco, serving almost 1,000 per year trans individuals, particularly trans people of color that are marginalized, homeless, and living with HIV from the Bay Area. Provide support to clients, provide them with case management, HIV prevention, education, basic services and support, including meals, and also providing a safe place for expression and empowerment. She's been recognized by many communities and organizations. The most recent was 2019, receiving the Cheryl Evans Award, but she's received many awards for her tireless work. And they come at a perfect time, these recognitions, to commemorate, again, her 25 years of fearless. I have one more thing to finish, of fearless activism and outstanding community work. So that's it. I mean, we took a long time to introduce these people, but they are so important in our work. Go ahead.
And it still doesn't even do them justice. Okay. So at this point, I want to go along our panel and start with my first question is if you can tell us how your program offers niche gender care. And I'll start with Dr. Zara Lay.
Hi, hi everyone. I am Zara Lay. I'm a plastic surgeon, and I just joined the Gender Confirmation Center. I'm coming from Arizona. I'm only 7 weeks old here in the Bay Area, so when people tell me where they live, I have no clue. But at the Gender Confirmation Center, one of the reasons I joined is really to help them develop that vision that Dr. Masha has for serving the community. Just like me, he's also very passionate about serving the community and providing excellent care. And so now that I'm here, I'm able to provide, like Dr. Wenberg said, full comprehensive surgical support for our community. And I'm very happy to do that here in the Bay Area.
Right, Michael.
Good evening. It's a real pleasure to be here to talk about Maitri Compassionate Care and the pathway that we're on to a niche gender care program. I think probably I represent the newest part of the social safety net, the medical safety net for transgender care. We've just begun this initiative. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story just so that you know how we got to where we are. We were founded 35 years ago by a Zen Buddhist monk, Isan Dorsey, at the Hartford Street Zen Center in the Castro. He took in a young man dying of AIDS, and then he realized he could take in another and another. And the next thing you know, Maitri was born. For those who don't know, Maitri is Sanskrit for compassionate friendship. And that was something that was very near and dear to his heart. Soon he had an 8-bed facility in the Castro. And in 1997 through 2000, we moved to the current location at 401 DuBose Avenue and built a facility with 15 beds. We're dedicated 14 beds to HIV and AIDS patients who are low income. That's part of our agreement with the federal funding that passes through the city of San Francisco and the Department of Public Health. And then out of those 15 beds, we also at the moment dedicate 1 bed to people who are in gender affirming care. one of the things that's really exciting to us, Dr. Fraser referred to it as wraparound services. I think in HIV and AIDS, we refer to it as a safety net. And we think of this as a way in which we can be part of adding to the care that transgender people are receiving as they go through transition. We're a state licensed residential care facility for the chronically ill. What that means is that we're highly regulated by the state with significant standards for the way in which we provide care to our residents. And this means that we will apply the same standards that we do for HIV and AIDS to the way in which we care for people who need gender affirmation recovery. We have a staff of 32. We have a very competent group of nurses and social workers and mental health folks. We have an extraordinary relationship with our physicians that we work with mental health professionals, social workers, case managers outside the organization, so that our residents will have internal care and outside care. And that helps us determine what's the best pathway. In the early days of AIDS, Maitri was a hospice. And what we did is help people in the last moments of their lives live with as much dignity and with as much comfort as they could do. And as time has gone on, as you know, AIDS has changed. And today, most of our work is done in respite care. And we have a really successful rate of discharging people successfully back into independent living. And for people who are disabled with HIV and AIDS, they come to us that way. We're involved in their care, the definition of their care, in order to be able to move them ultimately into a higher level of care, which is what they need, or into independent living. And we really consider the independent living part of this a great success. So we think that this equips us to be able to provide gender affirming care for the folks that will be joining us. I think I'll stop there. I could talk forever.
JM, you're up.
Hi, everyone. My name is J.M. Jaffe. I go by they and them pronouns. I'm the executive director of Lyon Martin Community Health Services in the Mission. And how do we provide niche care? I feel like, Lyon Martin has always provided niche care for transgender populations. We were established in 1979. Our legacy business started out really as a suitcase clinic, providing care to women, queer women, transgender people, non-binary people, intersex people. And now that we've, established ourselves and fast forward many, many decades, trans care is really the focus of what we do. 2/3 of our patient population are trans. And so it's not just, kind of an add-on service that we provide. Gender affirming care is truly integrated into everything that we do: primary care, gynecological care, mental health services, therapy, psychiatry. And we've really worked hard to really bring in a lot of specialty care into our practice as well, because we know that people feel safe and seen and respected when they come through our doors. So we now do physical therapy and speech therapy and hair removal, electrolysis and laser. And we have an OBGYN now who's doing more complex gynecological care. Our mental health services have expanded drastically, and we have 9 therapists now. And we also have a pretty strong outreach program going into the streets every day, providing, distributing, harm reduction supplies, doing overdose prevention, Narcan, fentanyl test strips, handing out tents, sleeping bags, to whoever needs it. So I think that kind of expansion and bringing that specialty care inwards has really done a huge service for the community. I think that in terms of how we are really, really unique in terms of the entire country or the world is that we are a staff, a leadership, providers. We are all majority transgender people. So we are actually 100% trans-led. Our clinical directors are both trans. our board is mostly trans. Our providers are trans themselves. So I think that, you know, having that lived experience and being able to like know what a client is coming in with and know what they've experienced and really connect with them in that way has really made us and kept us unique in terms of the care that we provide. And I think I'll just end by saying that, like, our goal, you know, when I think about the future of trans healthcare, my goal is like really not just to provide healthcare to address like the downstream effects of gender oppression and marginalization, but really to try to, you know, change the upstream causes of gender oppression and marginalization. So we've really been focusing in on building out our policy work, our research programs, and really provide, like, just putting money in the hands of trans people. That economic empowerment is really huge in terms of, you know, affecting their healthcare. I mean, literally just giving money to people will improve their healthcare. So we actually partnered with the Transgender District and we'll be administering the new Trans Guaranteed Income Program this year. And we also have a number of like workforce development programs that we're really proud of. So I think that, you know, providing that true place of safety and a home for people where they can see themselves and the providers they're providing the care is truly what makes us unique. So, thank you.
Plus, under your leadership,
It's so amazing.
they're expanding and looking for a new building to expand
Yeah,
further.
yes.
Yes. Nikki.
Hello, everyone. I'm so proud to be here right now because of this wonderful folks that I'm with on stage. And you guys are a very good looking crowd, by the way. So I just want to let you know. My name is Nikki Kalma and I go by she, hers. And I'm with the San Francisco Community Health Center. We were formerly known as not the artist named Prince, but Asian and Pacific Islander Wellness Center here in the Tenderloin. And we just celebrated our 35th anniversary. And yeah, since we're talking numbers here, you know, so. And I would probably say, you know, I always, when I'm asked what is the niche care that we offer, you know, TransTribe is a wraparound drop-in center for the transgender community, and it just didn't happen just that way. You know, TransTribe was a research study that started with UCSF a while back, and it was a 5-year research study where they was trying to find out the prevalence of HIV in the transgender community. There were no data available at that time, and yet we were seeing a lot of trans folks testing positive and dying of AIDS. And I think what happened was they stopped the research, and there was this 1 year of available funding, and they created the drop-in center to recruit participants. And what has happened was there was this really, when the thought that they saw it was going to close, the city had to save it, because 25 years ago, there were no places for the transgender community to come together, have support groups, you know, no mental health folks could talk to us. I was talking to Lynn earlier. The only place we had at that time was the Center for Special Problems, you know, and I don't think I want to go there, you know, if that's so, although they did wonderful work. Okay. So, but, you know, and so, and I don't know whether TransTribe dropped in our lap because our name at the time was Asian AIDS Project, started with an A, and that was the first thing that they saw or something. But we have had a extensive work with the transgender community and the API transgender community that we started our support groups in 1994. And we were and this was modeled by other organizations when they found about it. So moving forward, you know, I mean, when going back, I just want to mention also, like, as I said, you know, 25 years ago, we didn't have anything for the trans community. You know, I was a former sex worker. I walked around here on Bush Street and everything and all stuff. You know, I had to survive. Our support groups was when we saw each other in the jail. You know, we would talk with each other, share information. The streets was our, you know, circuit party. You know, after 2 o'clock when the club closes, we're all out in the streets. You know, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have, I mean, payphones were our best friends, you know, because we could call each other from there and everything. We had beepers and all that stuff, you know. So it's just really like, you know, it was fun actually. We had fun at that time, you know, but we had to survive. We had to survive. So moving forward, now that we have TransThrive fell on us, we saw the importance of a place where you can feel safe, where you can congregate and socialize with other folks that have similar things about, you know, who you are and what you're all about. Sometimes you just need a place where people you can talk with. And the transgender community didn't have that. You know, we're such a fragile community. You know, we're very sensitive. That's the thing. And so we're up on 730 Polk Street, where the Project Open Hand building is, along with Shanti. And we provide a lot of services. One thing that I want to focus on is that, you know, aside from a place where one can feel safe and thrive, is that we also have leadership development opportunities where we get funding from the Human Rights Commission. We have a Trans Leadership Academy. We have we train folks to produce events. You know, we love events. You know, we don't have enough events for the trans community, so we want to make sure that we have these places and the spaces to come together. And I think one thing that's kind of like makes us very special, you know, I don't want to say unique, but special, is that our approach is really, we're client-centered. You know, we really focus on the client. We really make sure that we meet them where they are. You know, if they're having a bad day, then we're all going to have a bad day. You know, we're just going to be there for you. So, and we have a trauma informed care approach also, knowing that, you know, folks that we work with has experienced the most severe trauma that one could ever experience. And like Lion Martin, we suddenly, the uptick of our mental health, behavioral health services has become so big because, as I said earlier, sometimes you just need someone to talk with, you know, and that works very, very so smoothly if there's someone there for you to talk with. So we can be here till 5 a.m, but you know, I don't want to give another 25 years of my life, you know, but that's what we are. We're over there. If you all want to check us out, it's a fun place. We serve hot meals. We have movie nights. We have folks who come in and do tarot reading, you know. No, I've never accessed it, you know, but it's fun, you know. We become creative, and now most recently we have a floral arrangement workshop, you know, because we're about life skills. We're about building capacity on how you can, you know, make money out of the talents that you have. So that's it.
How about a big round of applause for everybody up here? I mean, that is incredible. You know, like you, Nikki, I just feel so proud. I feel so proud listening to all of you. Next question, and that is to you. I think most of us know that trans healthcare is lifelong and interdisciplinary. It is not, as you've heard, it's not just one discipline, and it's also very community-centered as well. Can you discuss, from your perspective, the importance of lifelong gender care for the individual patient, their interdisciplinary needs? What kind of research do we need? And tell us a little bit about the standards of care. In 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, I got the hard question. Now, seriously, as we have all heard throughout the panel about wraparound services, and many institutions, from all sides, basically touting the multidisciplinary approach to gender care, and that's just an absolute necessity, and not just to have the care, but also to be able to communicate between the different parts of that big, basically village that takes care of our population. And so, but as a surgeon, at least from my standpoint, there's a common misconception just everywhere that surgery is the end all and that fixes everything, and that's simply not true. It's false. Yes, surgery is very beneficial. It accomplishes many things, but it doesn't just end there. There's so much more after surgery, but there's different facets of it. So it's not just the recovery, the potential long-term complications that may not develop right away, right after surgery. Sure, those are the acute, whether it's minor, major complications, but there are more long-term effects of surgery. And so you can see that even the surgical care, depending on what procedure you have, for example, something like vaginoplasty, there's lifelong commitment to maintaining the health of the vagina through a process called dilation. Otherwise, if someone has the best surgery ever done by Dr. Satterwhite, who is, good looking and very famous.
He's here.
Raise your hand,
Raise
Dr.
your hand.
Satterwhite.
Beautiful on the inside and
Thomas.
out.
Where is he?
I haven't seen him in a while, so I have to point him out. But
The humor.
no, but anyway, seriously, it will close on you. And so there's lifelong care, but not just from the surgical standpoint, but also mental health. And so there are things as post-op depression, and there's a big shift that I think people don't realize, that once you transition surgically into a body that aligns with you, now you're all of a sudden dealing with the challenge of a new physical identity, a new life in the world of how people see you. And that can come with a lot of obstacles on how people treat you, how people see you. And so, mental health becomes a very important part of that. Now, as far as medical care, continued medical care, another thing that isn't really thought about is that we're all just humans, and as humans, we all age. And so there are a lot of non-gender related issues that we are all going to experience after 25 years, apparently. That need care too. And so the thing is, what I have seen patients tell me is that, patients have diabetes like everybody else. Patients have kidney problems, heart problems. And what happens is they can't find care. There are places, most places do care and they try to do their best to take care of the patients. But there are some places that literally just refuse to take care of a patient because they carry that diagnosis of being transgender, non-binary, kind of thing. And it's completely unfair to basically, discriminate at that level, at the medical level. And so it's really sad to see patients get patient denied because of who they are. Now, as far as future research, now, one of the trends that I think we will all agree on is that the number of transgender youth, non-binary youth, gender diverse youth has grown by a vast number. And so I think the future sort of focus or research, of course, it's my soft spot being a pediatric plastic surgeon, is that there's a lot to be learned from the youth, things as the long-term effects of puberty blockers, the effects of surgery and how that affects them in all of those aspects that I talked about, but in the long run. And again, we're all human, so eventually the youth end up being old. And so there's a lot that still needs to be learned and collected. I know that there's ongoing research and data collection, and we're learning more and more. And for the most part, all of this is going to serve to change legislation and things like that. Now, in this climate, everybody's trying to block care to youth. And so I see a big part of the future in research in not studying, but certainly analyzing and following our youth through the whole process. And then the new edition of the Standards of Care is about to come out, and there will be some changes addressing, many facets, but certainly addressing the guidelines to safe practices towards all patients, but also the youth.
Michael, thank you. Tell us about newer programs you're initiating and how you would like to see the care evolve over time.
So I get to tell the rest of the story now. We've created the Maitri Affirmation Center. In 2019, this became something more than an idea, and the pandemic struck, and that certainly did help for a while. Last year, we were able to begin a serious program, and we have begun admitting people into the one room that's available. We recognize that our work is a strategy that's unique in the nation. This is not being done very many places. And so when we have people who come from across the ocean, or they come from Kansas and they need care and they need some place to live and to stay, we're going to be providing that care, unfortunately, for a very small number of people. We recognize that it's an enormous need, and we're going to try and see what we can do about that. We have begun, or will shortly begin, with the generous support of St. Francis Foundation, a construction project to add 2 new rooms. So that would give us a census of 3. So we think we can probably serve 15 to 18 people a year, depending on their particular needs. We, I guess, think ambitiously. I'm a bit of an ambitious guy, but ambitiously, there's going to be a need that might push us to a second facility and perhaps 30 beds, recognizing that that's an enormous amount of money, and we'll have to see how our relatively small organization is able to swallow that. But as a leader in gender affirmation care, this particular part of the safety net, we're excited about the potential of growing this strategy and helping to be an example for others in the country. So we believe that that's going to be a significant part of the legacy that we'll leave or create for gender affirmation. We have a relatively long experience with transgender people as residents at Maitri. At the moment, we have 2 who are transgender. Tomorrow, we admit someone who is transgender and HIV positive. And fortunately, they can go into the HIV rooms, which leaves the dedicated room to gender affirmation available for someone else. So we're pleased that we have the ability to have that much flexibility as we move forward. Without the help of St. Francis, this wouldn't be possible. We expect to start construction in the fall. We expect to bring those beds online sometime next summer. So it's a very slow process, but we have a really competent team. We believe in cultural competence and sensitivity. We practice that in our HIV and AIDS work, and we'll practice that well as well in gender affirmation. We are forging a great collaboration with Dr. Wittenberg and Mosaic Care with the Gender Institute and St. Francis. And we know that this is just the beginning of a relationship that we will work with them and with our peers, colleagues here, to make sure that we're doing our part of the important work to take care of people and provide a comfortable and safe home for them while they're in recovery.
Very nice.
I can't tell you how needed that is. And nodding to Jan, Nikki too. You talk about 25 years. I have 40 years. And one thing I want to say is that in my experience is that San Francisco has always been on the cutting edge. And we are the leaders in trans health. So as we move forward in our dream of, what is the term now that we're using instead of wraparound services?
Safety net.
Safety net. I like that. I like that. What are the barriers that we still have ahead of us, Nikki? Tell us, please, that what do we need to be working on?
Um, so, great question. I think there's still a lot of barriers, but I think if we bring it down to most importantly, first of all, I want to just mention we live in a great city. Actually, we are very fortunate, and I'm very grateful for this work that I do, that I live in a city where we have folks from city government to foundations to leaders that support trans liberation. It's so important that we have allies. It's so important. Is that enough? No, it's never enough. I think that applies for any marginalized population. One thing that I notice at the drop-in when I meet our participants who come in, especially if they just got their surgery done and everything, they talk amongst themselves and everything. There's a common thread when they talk about, who did your surgery? And like 3-4 folks will be talking, it's the same surgeon who did it, and everything. I think it's great we have some amazing surgeons right now, but I think we need more surgeons to come out and really, support the community, because as our dear doctor said here, there is an uptake of trans youth coming up, and we need providers for folks. We need spaces like Lion Martin, like Trans Drive, to really have a place where folks can really, it's not, there's a human being whenever you do a surgery, there, that they need to feel fulfilled, they need to feel accomplished, and we need the support. They need the support as much as they can. It is a true fact. It is still a big issue that not everybody has access to insurance, especially trans people of color, trans people of color, trans women of color. They get the short part of the stick. They call that. Like they will never. I mean, it's always a challenge for them to get something that other folks will get, in terms of insurance. Housing is one very important thing that we always need to address. I mean, we all suffer here in San Francisco because it's so expensive, but just think about, some of the folks that we met who come to our facility, who had just had surgery, and I asked, hey, did you just have your surgery like a week ago? Yeah, and it's like, why are you out? Like, why are you doing cartwheels here and everything? So, and I was like, I live in an SRO, and there are cockroaches. It's hot in there. I have a small fan and everything. Housing is so important, not just to recover, but also for the well-being of a person. It's so important. And sometimes at one point I thought about, like, I think, when Medi-Cal covered everything already, pretty much, I think that was a setup for failure, especially for those who access Medi-Cal who live either in the streets or living in SROs, because they don't have rooms for recovery. And this is such great news for my cheek. I mean, like, this is amazing. Some folks will not have a place where they can dilate, because this is not like, this is not a process where you just stick it in and you're done for the day. This is something that needs caring, that needs you have to be extra careful on it, So housing. Also, I think there is there is an opportunity here also for us to always look at, I mean, as I said, the places, we need to have more safe spaces for trans folks. We don't have that much. I think we should have more. And we need to be allies, we need to be activists. I mean, you don't have to be an activist, but you just have to be there to understand and support the issue, pretty much.
Thank you. JM, you're up. Continued discrimination, bias, negative legislation, and violence impacts the trans community. Where do you think the most effective focus points are for support and funding to help this fight?
Such a big question. I mean, really, especially in today's world where, transphobic legislation is being introduced in many states, and not even introduced, but passed in many states. We're seeing people from all over the country move here, which was true before, but is even more true now. And even at Lyon Martin, like we had, wait lists before because demand is high, but we're seeing it skyrocket because people are just migrating here. And so, I have a few ideas. One is that I'll just say it, like trans healthcare is significantly underfunded. We put all these programs together, like, with shoestring, and we make magic happen every day with a penny. And we deserve better as a community. We deserve immediate access. We deserve like beautiful spaces. And in the nonprofit world, when you're really underfunded, those spaces just aren't there for you. And so I think one of the biggest, most impactful things that can be done is providing funding to orgs like ours that are doing the work. But also, I'll just say, as a child of two sociologists, again, like putting money in the hands of trans people directly is always preferred. Because really, like that makes all the difference in someone's lives. And beyond the economics of it, supporting the trans people in your lives, loving on them. And if you don't have trans people in your lives to love on, find someone's GoFundMe somewhere and put your money there. I think in terms of policy work, like if you are, an influencer in some kind of political arena, like we need stronger laws to protect us in every arena, and not just in other states, but even here in California. We just passed, yes. We just passed a law this year that will require insurance companies to tell you where to get gender affirming care in network, which is great, but it's wild that we have to create a law to say that to the insurance company, you have to tell them where to go to get this, because you call people and they just have no idea what you're talking about. They say transphobic things, they misgender you, and then you're done for the day, and that's even if you have like the courage to even make the call in the first place, because your life is, you're struggling. So yeah, policy work is huge. So if you have any ins in the political realm, definitely put in a good word for us. Thank you.
And vote. Again, vote.
Vote.
So I'm going to invite Michelle up on board here.
Hello.
She's our foundation board member as well.
Hello. First of all, can we get a round of applause for this amazing panel? We have put in a fair amount of work to pull this together, so thank you for your time and your talents and your treasures. My name is Michelle Hansen. I proudly serve on the board of the foundation. And the foundation, what we do is we basically support the health and wellness of the San Francisco community. And we do so by providing grants to San Francisco Memorial Hospital, or St. Francis Memorial Hospital, and other organizations such as the wonderful organizations that are represented up here. And before we go to Q&A, which I will lead, and from an administrative perspective, if you have a question, please raise your hand. I will come around with a microphone. We would like to have the microphone so for the benefit of folks that are live streaming as well as listening to the recording. So I'd appreciate that. Before we do so, I want to show an example of how the foundation supports the health and wellness of our community. And Michael, excuse me, I would love if you would share your relationship with the foundation and Maitri.
Absolutely. We're really extraordinarily grateful to the foundation because it's allowed us to start this journey, something that wouldn't have been possible because, as has been observed, resources are very limited. And we realized that in order for us to be able to do that, we had to partner with organizations and foundations and individuals who would care about trans health and would be willing to invest in it at this point. As you know, there are very few folks, foundations in the country that are deeply committed to trans health and funding it. So the seed money that's come from St. Francis, as I said earlier, just lobbying a little bit, we believe is the beginning of a collaboration. We do hope that it'll also be the impetus for other support. I'll tell you just one thing that was surprising to us is the mayor's office called and said, we'd like to talk to you about helping to fund the Maitri Affirmation Center. And usually politicians don't call up and say, how can I give you money? So that was quite a shock. We have identified other entities, but St. Francis's gift is really the beginning. And so I would say to you, support the foundation because they're doing great work and it passes through to all of us in important ways and allows us to meet the needs of gender affirming recovery and help support the work that we're doing in a way that allows us to be a model of care.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And with that, we will open it up for Q&A. And I believe Erin has a mic. She will run around. And if you have a question, please raise your hand.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for speaking, y'all. It's really an honor to hear about the work you all are doing and just recognizing the impact on trans people's lives immediately because we're talking about, you know, the work that's happened, but there's a lot of trauma, like you said, and everyday incidents that continually add to the impact that trans people face on a daily basis. What I want to ask you all is if you have examples of actions that people in this room can do tonight, tomorrow, that can really create immediate change. You know, we're all diverse in different ways, but people have different privileges and different access. I want to know, like, and a lot of it was mentioned in your words, and I thank you for that, like the dollars matter, investment conversations, but where can we take that? Like, does it work at the Thanksgiving table? Does it, you know, what are examples in your professional and personal life where you've seen a simple action that we can do tomorrow make a really big impact on trans people's lives?
I would love to hop in for a quick sec, but I always say for when I'm giving lectures to providers, I'm like, could you just open your doors? Open your doors, even if you don't think you provide. Treat the individual. They have hypertension, treat hypertension. Don't call me because I did a surgery 15 years ago and the patient's in the ER and they have a gallbladder issue. Treat the patient for the gallbladder issue. So open your doors, open your mind, and ask everybody. You should be introducing yourself as, my name's Heidi, my pronouns are she, her, and this is normative. Just the beginning, just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Michael. My pronouns are he and him. I didn't say that when I began. I think I've been surprised as we've begun this journey with Maitri Affirmation Center is how many people in the LGBTQ community don't understand transgender life. And I think pronouns and the right names and matching it with gender identity is really important. But as you know, I'm a bit of a politician because of all my work in lobbying. And the big part of what we're doing at this point is also politics. Transgender people experience really tough moments, and we really are only going to be able to fix that if we have government that cares, and that people individually decide that respect is the way in which they should engage in this work. So politics is really, so Heidi's right, vote.
One thing I'd like to say is I'm so glad you're here. You're here. Just by being here indicates a real interest in this work. I would suggest for those who are cisgender, such as myself, I'm Lynn, she, her, is get to know trans people if you don't already. Get to know, because for a lot of people, trans people are still a mystery, seemingly. And of course, get to know trans people, they're same as everybody. But it's really important to demystify who trans people are. And then, of course, if you're a provider of any kind, as Heidi said, to make sure that you open your doors, get training. There's training out there. So many times when I train, other providers are oftentimes afraid. They're worried they're not going to say or do the right thing. They're worried they might harm somebody. And if you deeply care, everybody who's trained as a provider is trained in caring, should be. That's the beginning, to listen. But again, I mean, it is to open your hearts. I love that question. Are we answering it?
Absolutely.
All right.
I'll just add, you mentioned the Thanksgiving table, which brings me to kind of those interpersonal moments. And I think that we've kind of come into a time where, like, if someone says something bigoted, you kind of just cancel them. And I actually want to encourage everyone who has some privilege in this regard to actually have the conversation about transphobia, call it out, name it. Don't be like, yeah, you're a bad person for saying that, but, like, reassure them that, like, it's actually okay that you made a mistake, but this is how you're supposed to talk about this. And that goes the same thing for racism and ableism and, whorephobia, right? Like, all these things, trans people are disproportionately also, people of color and, living with disabilities and sex workers, right? And so it's important to, like, think about, oppression in an intersectional way and call out all of those different isms that you hear your family and your friends say on a daily basis. Because honestly, like, we're tired. We're so tired of correcting people. And like, for survival, like, we often won't, because we do it all day long and we're tired.
I just want to add something to that. Thank you for asking that question. Well, first of all, talking about Thanksgiving. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Talking about Thanksgiving, we have an event called Transgiving. So you can volunteer if you want to. You can talk to folks. You can even serve. You can even cook for us if you want to. It happens on Thanksgiving Day. And what Jam just actually mentioned, we have in the Leadership Academy that we provide for the community, we have this one module called Calling Out and Calling In, where, call out the issue, but don't be afraid to call them back in, because that's the way to educate someone. That's the way to understand what you're calling out that person for, and then also understanding the intersectionality of each and every person, to privilege. It's really important to understand it. And it's not just for trans folks only, but it's also for everybody. For me, being Asian, being 50 years old, 55 years old, and that's not a baby. I'm sorry, but but thank you. It's and living with HIV, I still, I go on dating sites, and when I tell people I'm HIV positive, undetectable, okay, undetectable. I won't pass the virus on to you or something. I hear all this, excuse the French, oh, fuck you, you should not be existing. Why are you on the side and everything and all this stuff, we have to really start from the bottom to the top, to be more sensitive, to be educated, to be more empowered on how to treat people with dignity, I think. So.
Hi, my name's Catherine. I'm back here. She, her are my pronouns. And I have an amazing transgender daughter. She's 20, and it just feels really good to see all of you brilliant and courageous people on the stage and all of you amazing supportive people here that are interested in these issues. It's very isolating sometimes in the community. I'm not trans, but having a trans daughter, it places me in that community and really aware of a lot of the issues. And my question for the panel is around my daughter's treatment. And I'm wondering, she has amazing health insurance. She's super smart, but she needs some drugs to be who she is. And we're having a really hard time getting them approved by your insurance company. It's that practical. And I wanted to ask anyone on the panel, where does she go? And it's not, these are not like $500 drugs. These are like $20,000 a year drugs to be who she is. And we're just hitting a wall. So that's my question. And thanks for your thoughtfulness around it.
So I'll start. It's all insurance. It's always the question that's hardest for us to answer because we all personally have issues with fighting insurance. We are if your daughter's in California, there are legal advocacies for them to because California has a law that all insurances that practice in California have to provide gender care. So so I would start with, marching up the ladder, but there are some legal advocacy centers. And for instance, Nikki, you said Susie Chung?
Cecilia Chung.
Cecilia
yes.
Chung.
She's with the Transgender Law Center.
Yeah.
They're based in Oakland, and they do policy work nationally, but they can connect you with someone who can advocate in your behalf to really get those drugs. And it is the reality. Sometimes also is it's a process, and you have to go through the process. It's not just going to happen right there, but the Transgender Law Center and other legal entities have advocates that can really work with individuals, with families, to make sure that that those laws are being observed and being implemented. So.
I'll just hop in. As a part of my consulting firm, Trans Health Consulting, I actually help people with appealing unlawful denials. I will say, so yes, there is the Insurance Gender Non-Discrimination Act, and that allows you to appeal to your insurance company and then appeal to the state. And then the state is supposed to basically enforce those laws to your insurance company and make them cover it and slap them with a fine, which makes them want to eventually, if it impacts them enough, they will change their policy to actually include whatever it is over time. I will say, I'm assuming you're talking about Lupron. Yes? Yeah, okay. So Lupron is a little bit hard because technically there are other medications that block the endogenous production of testosterone. So sometimes insurance companies are like, oh, well, you have to prove that those other medications didn't work for you in order for me to actually say, yes, you can have that thing. I've done a few appeals to the state regarding Lupron, and they were not successful because of that very fact. So my advice to you, and we can talk more offline if you want, would be to gather as much documentation possible, like showing that spironolactone or whatever other medication did not work for your child. And then that will hopefully make the strongest case possible for that appeal.
Okay, well, thank you for your thoughtful questions. Much appreciated. We can't do the work at the foundation. I'll step up here so you can see me. We can't do the work at the foundation without support of generous donors such as yourself. So thank you for your past donations. Thank you for your current donations, and thank you for your future donations. Once we adjourn here, there will be a list of ways that you can donate. We have a text that you can do. We have Joyce Tam sitting outside who greeted you. She has a square if you are capable and able and willing to donate yet tonight. And also our website is always open for donations. So thank you so much. Thank you once again to this amazing panel. Thank you for your support. And Kate, do you want to say anything?
I just want to recognize the fact that Darren Kumar is in the room, and he's the CEO of St. Francis Memorial Hospital and St. Mary's Medical Center. Thank you for coming. Kim Brown Sims, Kevin, Drew. There's a lot of great people in the community at this hospital, great patients, great staff, great doctors, great community. And if it was not for the partnership of this hospital to make this institute possible, we would not be here. So we're really grateful for this amazing doctors, psychotherapists, panelists, and partnership, because the community and the hospital coming together, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's come together and do this together. So thank you, Darren, and everyone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. We will be around for another roughly 15 to 30 minutes if you want to stay, and hopefully our panelists can stick around as well if you have any questions. But thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it, and have a lovely evening.